about the culture of sponsorship and understanding consequences. You've spoken about the gateway into an organization through experience, and how many times have you see the successful applicant will have at least 25 years of operations experience in supply chain. Well, I mean, how many people do you think are coming out of diversity ranks are going to be? Is HR the next big function to undergo massive change in an organization? I'm not picking on HR, so please don't get me wrong. Pat, any comments between Maria, you, yourself, and Anne on what does HR need to look like in the future?
Well, one thing I wanted to say that relates to your question is some of the best businesses that I've worked with have not left mentorship and sponsorship to individual initiatives. They actually build it into the way their organization works. Now, to cite an example, General Electric. When somebody comes in as a young, new person into GE, that person is, let's call it corporate property. And they move along in the way that you were talking about, Rita, from job to job without having to actually be settled into anything initially. And as they move along their career, there's tremendous support for the career movement of people, and both laterally and vertically. You're a part of a functional excellence team, you're part of the business, and your career is not left to chance or left to the luck of the draw as far as who your manager is. And I think the HR function, to get to your question, HR needs to, I think, be seriously rethought, because most of the HR systems that are out there, including performance appraisal, goal setting, and all that, are suited to the more vertical world. And they, in fact, sometimes even interfere with people's ability to work across the channels. So HR has a very important role to play, because we're moving into an era of people, for sure. And technology is taking over all of this, what used to be work that people needed to do, and it's actually raising the demand for higher quality thinking, relationship capabilities, and everything else. And we need to be, HR needs to stand back and really rethink. Job descriptions, I don't think, are even going to be anywhere in the near picture. We're going to, I think, be looking at people's skills and deploying people according to the skills they have, and that's going to take care of, being sure I'm not stuck in a place on an organization chart with terrible loss, and now I'm here and nobody knows I'm here. So HR has a really big role to play, but I think HR has to stand up and be counted and be really willing to rethink some of these sacred cows in HR.
We developed an organizational development review process 20 years ago with help from an outside consultant. And it's probably the best strategic thing we ever did, because each year at the senior levels of the company, we review the entire company at certain levels. And it's a big 360 process. We talk about potential job assignments, we talk about putting people on projects, we talk about the time for Judy to go over to Susie's place, and those conversations continue throughout the year. That has really helped us develop this new kind of bench that's ready for whatever our customers bring to us, because we're never sure what new project we're going to be getting where, under what circumstances. So I think it's strategic HR has absolutely got to be one of the top functions in the company.
So listening, and I'm going to go to Maria now, but listening to you and Pat, and it's quite scary in a way that organizations are trapped in this late stage 2 of performance improvement. But when you think of how many systemic barriers we have to moving an organization to stage 4, we've got systems that drive functional excellence. We've got HR that is, in many senses, and you certainly have a more advanced nature of HR in the organization, but you've got HR that's driving, in essence, stage 2, stage 3 thinking. IT is driving stage 2 and stage 3 thinking. So, one of the big questions we have to ask ourselves, have we put all of these barriers in place that are going to prevent us from getting to stage 4 thinking? I don't know how many of you know anybody in Procter & Gamble, and I'm not talking about someone who once worked for Procter & Gamble. If you have the privilege to ever work with Procter & Gamble, what is incredible is that you meet with most people who have at least 25 years experience with Procter & Gamble. That's 25, 31, 33 years worth of experience. They are the DNA of Procter & Gamble. It's in their blood. They behave in this integrative sponsorship way wherever you put them, whether they're solving problems, talking to them on the telephone, it's like one voice. They use the same language. Now, I'm not saying that's where we all need to be, But in order to get to stage 4.7 or stage 5, we need to codify some best practices and take some of these systemic barriers out of the way. Mary, anything that you'd like to add?
Just a final point, just mostly to say that I don't know that much about HR organizations because typically it's not my client and I've never worked really at a big company, but I know about the customers of HR, which are the people going into the workforce, and I can tell you two things. First of all, some of those young people, we just graduated a few weeks ago, 16 new engineers in supply chain engineering from the Georgia Tech program, and two things that struck me. When they go to an interview, you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And they determine the kind of companies they want to work for and the kind of companies they don't want to touch. You know, people talk about unemployment rates. Kids of this generation, they choose not to work with tobacco companies if it against their values, and it's another game. We have some students, first jobs they got, and one of them wanted 2 afternoons free because he wants to build houses for Habitat for Humanity. And if you cannot accommodate those 2 free afternoons, that kid that is a bright engineer is not going to come to work with your company. So it's a different set of, I'm sensing in the market a new generation. Actually, some people call them the Generation G, which is the generalist generation. Some of them fed up with the ambition of their parents and the all for up for grabs. And I will say that HR organizations not only need to change, but also we probably need to adapt the organization per se to this kind of people. Because it is true, we see a lot of companies with mentoring programs and career management programs, but guess what? They don't want to be managed that way. It's not their goal to become a C-level executive. It's not. I mean, you ask some of this, and I have students that have gone to work for World Vision. They want to do humanitarian logistics. They want to do different things. So the fact that you tell them, go here, then go here, then go here, and eventually you're going to be the senior VP of supply chain, that does not get them excited by any means. And that's us, but it's not them. So I think being mindful with the pool of talent that you need to retain and attract is what is going to make HR organizations and us as HR managers at some point in our lives change.
Good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open the floor to maybe 1 or 2 quick questions. And while we're taking the questions, I'm going to ask each of the panel members to leave you with a takeaway thought. In other words, a personal recommendation, something that's really actionable and insightful that you can take out of the session. So anybody have a question that they'd like to ask of any member of the panel?
Where are your organizations typically in this, of course, your discussion, I know, but maybe you can speak to the university in this sort of chain, and how do you feel about your walk through this process?
So knowing, having done many of the diagnostics, let me give Anne a clue, because I mean, you know, to an extent there's a whole diagnostic program behind this. But from all the things that Anne has said about focus on people, the approach to management of organization, you're definitely an early stage 4 organization. There is clearly end-to-end process thinking in your organization. Stage 3 is functional excellence. Now, and I think really, I'm not going to talk for Georgia Tech, but I think every university
It's in stage 1.
I would say that the university's license to be on the starting block is functional excellence, right? I mean, it's an engineering university, it's not a kumbaya.
Well, what is funny is universities per se reward individual contribution. You know, we get paid to lecture, to go on tenure, to publish, to do everything as individuals. And, you know, I love Chesbrough and, you know, some of the people talking about innovation these days. There's actually a fantastic book about a new future for the university of the 21st century. And of course, nobody at Georgia Tech have read it because we're against it since before reading it. But I think as an organization, we're in very early stages. However, you take certain individuals in universities, I have fabulous colleagues, and they can really support organizations to move along the lines. It's just the organization per se doesn't move, but we have plenty of catalysts that have helped organizations move through that continuing supply chain.
It's interesting, and again, no names or university names here, but it's interesting to see the big debacle about getting students to sign charters of behavior, codes of conduct. I think that's a clear indication that universities are starting to take a very good hard look at themselves and say, you know what, maybe we need to go about this in a slightly different way in the future. More collaboration and less other stuff. Any more questions out of the audience? And then I'm going to close out with the panel members. Yep.
So I work in an engineer company. Men, maybe 98%. I am the first woman, in fact, a woman in the operations, in logistics. They don't understand what is supply chain. They understand what logistics means. Any advice how to really break the silos or the barrier of seeing supply chain as helping them and supporting them to get success, then all of a sudden saying, they are taking part of my work over here, and I'm not letting anybody.
I'd say find a friend to talk to her first.
Yeah, so the question was, if you're an organization where you're absolutely a minority, how do you break those silos down? And I'm going to pick up on a point Anne just made. Anyone want to finish that?
No, I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Go ahead.
Well, so the head of supply chain for DuPont, somebody asked exactly the same question. DuPont are very end-to-end process thinkers. He said, take the leaders out and show them an organization where things are done differently. Because until people see it with their own two eyes and they see how can you change the mental model of the organization? And the only way they're going to believe it is when they see it. Because you can talk and read books and show the material until the cows come home and nothing will change. Okay, so the next group is coming through. Let's just ask the panel members to quickly close off with that key takeaway thought, and then we'll call it a day. Pat?
Yeah, I would just say that organizations are needing to make some major changes, and I think we're moving in the direction of much more participative organizations where people are partnering in a lot of the decisions in different ways, including their own careers. And in most companies, we really don't have a good idea about how to do that. But we're moving to a much more participative business. That's the only way that it can work.
And I think to Pat's point, start off by dynamic goal alignment. I mean, if you're not regularly aligning and collaborating around your goal sets, then I don't know how you do that at the moment. Maria?
My closing thought will be, if you want to transform an organization beyond optimization, you got to bring diversity. Multiple accents, multiple countries, multiple genders, multiple cultural backgrounds will do wonders for your organization in the transformation path.
Now, I would just add that I really believe that supply chain leaders are going to be the leaders of our organizations in the future. So that's where the top leadership is going to come from. So I would urge everyone to take a chance on somebody with potential that hasn't proven it on their resume, and simply take a chance with a woman you think has some of the qualities that would be helpful as you put together a new kind of value proposition for your customers. Because there's a lot of talent out there that we could use.
Good. Well, I want to say thank you very much to the panel members. And I just want to make a special point. I mean, if we had three of the best inventory optimization specialists in the world here, we'd be enthralled. Well, we have three very experienced change leaders, and I think there are some deep insights that came out of today's discussion. The fact that this room wasn't chock-a-block full drained everybody out of the whole conference. Is just the fact that we're on our way to recognizing how we go about changing this diversity ratio. Because next year, hopefully this whole room is full if we did this again. Thank you very much.